frost of the winter. Ooh, it's 29 degrees Fahrenheit out here. That would be, oh man, they cut down all the trees over there. Dang, that's a shame. Now I can see way past my neighbor's place, which used to be obstructed by trees. It was lovely. The trees are gone now. I can see a couple kilometers out there. They cut them down apparently yesterday while I was gone. Well, there's a new development going up over there, unfortunately. More urban development, peri-urban area. Well, welcome back to the program, folks. It's a pleasure to have you join me again. This morning's topic, oh my goodness. Well, look, I'll tell you what. It's, again, let's just start this by saying, first off, major props to the All Blacks on an incredible performance, particularly when they're down to 14 players for much of the game. They never gave up. They competed, and they were worthy opponents for the final. And major props to most Kiwi, New Zealand All Black fans who've been fantastic, along with most South African fans who've been fantastic. Some have been rubbing things in a little bit. It's kind of silly. But most people have been pretty cool about this. There haven't been salty tears. There hasn't been any chest pains among Springboks or All Blacks fans. However, as I mentioned, there has been a lot of it coming out of England. Obviously, a small minority of England fans, and the same out of France. But today, Planet Rugby runs a bizarre story. It's not bizarre from the content. It's well written and it's clear. It's written by Colin Newbolt. And in this story, which I can find from no other source to confirm this, Planet Rugby says that the New Zealand Rugby Union has filed a formal complaint with World Rugby over the officiating in the 2023 Rugby World Cup Final. They quote Ian Foster, the former head coach of the All Blacks, who's now moved on, as saying that they have sent a file to World Rugby to get them to make a few comments, and he hopes that they will make a few comments. That's Ian Foster. And ask about whether it included the red card incident with Sam Cane. He says, well, I'll let you guess, basically. So what the hell is going on here? What is with New Zealand Rugby Union? In 95, it was whining about they were food poisoning. That's why the Springboks beat them, because they got food poisoning. This is sour grapes, and it brings disrepute on the New Zealand Rugby Union, if it's true. I mean, look, again, this is a report in Planet Rugby. I haven't found anywhere else, but it's shocking enough a story that it needed to be discussed, and I think on air live, that's why I'm doing it. If indeed this is true, what is wrong with these people at New Zealand Rugby? I mean, he's talking about sour grapes. You lost. You didn't win. You didn't bring even remotely close to the best team you've ever brought to a World Cup. And you got to a final. Be happy about that. You know, it isn't that the game was stolen from them by bad officiating. It's that they failed to perform. They had the ball 61% of the time. They failed to capitalize. The one try that they were granted wasn't even a try. If anybody has a complaint, it's the Springboks about that try that was granted to Beauden Barrett on a forward pass or knock-on. Take your pick. Oh, it bounced backwards. Chris, you don't know the laws. It didn't bounce backwards. Unless the earth skipped a beat and stopped its rotation for a moment, it did not go backwards. It went forwards for those who watched it and those who are honest. That is the bottom line. That is the truth. But seriously, as I said, Colin Newbolt in Planet Rugby about 10 hours ago published a report. I saw it when it came out last night. I didn't want to do anything right away because I don't like running stories with single sources, but he quotes Foster. So Planet Rugby, a reliable, reputable rugby site, if in fact they are making this up, which I seriously doubt, their reputation will be destroyed and be in tatters. So I'm taking that risk of running this story now. But I waited overnight here in the East Coast US for someone else to pick up the story. I did see it on MSN, but that's about it. But MSN is about as reliable as, you know, a warlord in Central Africa. So anyway, but Planet Rugby is saying that in fact, New Zealand Rugby has filed a complaint with World Rugby over the officiating. Now, for his part, there's another story run by Planet Rugby, and also it's run elsewhere, that former coach Steve Hansen is whining about the officiating and the television match officials, saying that, you know, this needs to be cleaned up. The television match official is a problem. It's interesting because some commentators are rightly saying that fans and officials wanted the television match official involved. They wanted replay. They wanted better officiating. And when they got that, they complained about it. Now, let's be upfront. I've complained about officiating, but I'm not talking about the TMO as far as whether it should be there or shouldn't be. The TMO is a great addition to the game, in my view. I mean, quite frankly, if we go back to the FIFA World Cup in 2010, we saw South Africa, or Ghana robbed, excuse me. Ghana was robbed. When was it Uruguay they were playing? A player was in the goal. He's not even allowed to be in there, and he touches the ball. He's not a goalie. And instead of a penalty or instead of a penalty point, they got a penalty kick and missed, and when a game that they got cheated out of. So I mean, replay has a role in sports. The problem is that the issue with the TMO in this World Cup was it was so uneven. I mean, we saw in games where, especially Springbok games, where they would go back 5, 7, 8 phases and go, hold on, the TMO says there was a knock on. You have to give it to the other team. What is that? So they review knock-ons from 8, 10 phases prior, and they don't review tries. I mean, the announcers frequently tell us, perhaps they're wrong about the laws, perhaps they're wrong about what's happening. They're constantly telling us that, well, all tries are reviewed. Really? All tries are reviewed? I mean, Wayne Barnes was quick to put that arm up and whistle a try when Bowden Barrett picked that knock-on up, or forward pass, take your pick, and scored a try in the non-try that New Zealand was awarded. So my issue with the TMO is that it's inconsistent and it's unclear to the fan base what's actually happening. I think it's unclear to a lot of players too. I mean, when can they go back? How far can they go back? If it's an injury, if it's foul play, they can go back as far as they need to. I have no problem with that, and I think most people have no problem with that. But a lot of people are having serious issues with the way this is done. But New Zealand Rugby filing a complaint with World Rugby, talk about sour grapes. Talk about unbelievably bad sportsmen. They lost. Hey, New Zealand should be happy. They should be very happy. They wound up in a situation where their opponents weren't exactly challenging to get to the final. They weren't exactly challenging. Except for Ireland. Ireland was a challenge, I should say. Correct that. Ireland was a challenge for them. But Argentina wasn't a challenge. And then they get to the final, and they play the Springboks, and they lose. Suck it up, Buttercup. Take your lumps. Be a man. Man up for it. No, this is very disappointing. Very disappointing. If it's true, as I said, I only have the single source, which comes from Planet Rugby. Again, a reliable rugby site. By the way, if you look at Planet Rugby's site, you'll find a lot of good stories, including one about their alternate dream team. Not the Dream On team that World Rugby selected, of 15 players who are supposedly the best players in the World Cup, 10 of whom didn't get out of a quarterfinal. Now, Planet Rugby is a little more generous. I suggested Jesse Creel should be in that list. They agree with that, of those who got picked for that dream team. They also left Peter Steph du Toit on there, and that's fine, especially given his final appearance, but I didn't put Peter Steph du Toit on there. And some people are saying, what are you talking about? Well, he disappeared in a couple of games that were key, and was kind of gassed, but he definitely showed up in that final. It's man, oh man. Brian O'Driscoll also had some comments about Peter Steph du Toit, calling him a medical miracle. I mean, remember all the things that happened to him. He nearly lost his leg because of an infection. He had to have a tendon replaced. It was donated by his father. The guy is like the $6 million man, and look at him just still doing it in the World Cup. But the bottom line here is that why is it always opponents have to whine and cry when the Springboks win? Oh, it's never the Springboks are great. Or if they do win it, well, it's because their style of rugby is boring, or they cheat with a 7-1 bench split, or they're doing this. Someone needs to look at what they're doing. Or they food poisoned us. They poisoned us with restaurant food. Come on. It's always one thing or another. Unbelievable. Remember the British and Irish Lions series a couple years ago? Warren Gatland whined about the fact that because of Rona, the TMO was a South African before the match even began. He publicly complained about it. And we all know that, of course, if Warren Gatland was given a 12-month suspension from World Rugby, he couldn't be... Oh, no, I'm sorry. He didn't get a suspension. That was Rossi Erasmus. Of course, Johnny Sexton walked down the field and verbally insulted Jaco Piper after match in front of hundreds of fans. And of course, we know that he got a 12-game suspension. Oh, no. Well, that's right. He got to participate in the entire World Cup. That's right. Yeah. Or Owen Farrell, who also abused people, and he was, just 2 games, and he was back. Yeah. Well, what happens now? The All Blacks are undermining the integrity of the game. By the very definition of World Rugby, they're undermining the integrity of the game. Will they be sanctioned? No, they won't be sanctioned because it's their prerogative to file a complaint. Of course, the game ended nearly a week ago. And now they're filing a complaint last night or today, 4 or 5 days after the game. There's a window for these things. I don't know what the window is under the laws for filing a complaint, or what the procedure is, to be quite honest. It's very confusing. I mean, certain things have to be within 36 hours. Other things have to be within 24 hours. It's all over the place. But honestly, if the All Blacks Rugby Union New Zealand Rugby Union is filing a complaint about the officiating in the final, Why just the final? Nothing changed. The officiating was the same process throughout the World Cup, and we didn't hear the All Blacks complain about it before when it worked to their advantage, only when it works to their disadvantage in their view. And their view is skewed. Look, most people generally say that Wayne Barnes and the officiating crew did a fantastic job. I don't think they did a fantastic job. I think they did a good job. And of course, I point out some of the challenges that were going on in that contest, and not just that one, but others. But, again, that was not a try. There were a few side entries that were missed, but by and large, it was pretty well called game. And I said that when the Springboks were on the verge of potentially losing the game. I made it very clear in my play-by-play and color commentary before the game was over, when the All Blacks had the ball, they were in position for a kick. We could lose. And I said, we lose this game. Wayne Barnes, officiating crew, all things being equal, done a pretty good job in this game. Yep. Now, I didn't say the same thing in a few other games. I think a lot of the consternation with all this, folks, is simply that a lot of people are angry about the TMO coming in and overriding the official in the field. Well, quite frankly, a lot of people were angry at the officials in the field handing out red cards. They got angry. I remember Jaco Piper handing out a red card a couple of years ago, and people lost their minds. But under the laws, that's what he had to do. Honestly, the bunker review, I think, is Nas doesn't like it, but I think the bunker review is not a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. It's just the execution of things have to be consistent, and that's the challenge here. Most Kiwi fans and pundits who are honest and have reviewed the red card to Sam Cane and the yellow card to Sia Khaleesi agree that those were the correct calls. Yeah, they're marginal, but rugby's a marginal game. Sam Cane came in high. He hit the guy in the head. Now, I've seen a comment that nobody had to go off for head injury assessment. So the only time that particular pundit thinks that it's appropriate to give a red card is if a player is injured, sent off for injury evaluation. The purpose of a red card is to deter misconduct. It's not simply to punish someone for causing an injury. I mean, quite frankly, if it's for causing an injury, then the red card to Shannon Frizzell should have been in play. That's another one. The All Blacks escaped a red card in what clearly, on review, looks like an intentional effort to take Bongi Ambanami out of the game. Now, that's not an allegation. I'm saying that's what it looks like. Look at the video. I saw it live. I called the game live, and I thought that from the front, it was a neck roll. And I said so at the time, and they never discussed it. The TMO didn't talk about it. Wayne Barnes never said anything about a neck roll, but you can clearly see he grabs him. The play is dying. He grabs him by the neck, pulls him over like this. And what I didn't see, and what most of us didn't see because we didn't have that camera angle on television, maybe people in the stadium saw it, but we didn't see it, is that, in fact, he put his weight on Bongi's leg, which caused the injury. The TMO caught that. Well done. But quite frankly, if you look at that video from behind and see what happens, it clearly looks like a spearing attempt going for the leg as he bent him around. That's a red card all day long. And Shannon Frizzell did not get a red card. So the All Blacks want to complain about the officiating. I think we can complain about the dirty England style of play that the All Blacks employed there. Not accusing Shannon Frizzell of an intentional effort, but the result sure looks like dirty play. And that's the bottom line with that one, folks. I mean, look, I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I suppose it's nice we still have rugby news to talk about, but we're talking about New Zealand filing a complaint about officiating. I think lots of teams can file complaints about officiating in this World Cup. Look, World Rugby, let's go back. Let me talk about this very quickly before we get too far down the road here. As I've said many times, officiating on the pitch for a rugby official is the most challenging task of any official in any sport anywhere in the world. No one has it more difficult. All the things that they have to see, all the decisions they have to make, all the complicated laws they have to deal with and understand and make decisions on the fly in the instant. And they're running all the time. They run more than the players do. Well, some of the wings out-sprint them, but they run more than the players do. In basketball, the officials run up and down 50 feet, and they walk around most of the time. And they've got like half a dozen of them in that small space. In baseball, the officials, and in cricket, they just sit behind the players, and they don't get any exercise at all. In soccer, they're mostly walking and trotting occasionally. They're very seldom. They're never sprinting. But in rugby, those officials have to sprint. They have to be fit. They have to run all over the place. They have to get on top of things. They have to make split-second decisions, and they get things wrong. In fact, a lot of All Blacks fans, well, not a lot of All Blacks fans, a lot of All Blacks pundits, the fans have been pretty cool about this, but a number of people, particularly in comments on posts on media and on social media, are complaining that the Well, I'll come back to that in a minute. Anyway, it's it's look. I mean, I'd like to see more reporting on this. And again, this is not me making an allegation. I'm simply reporting what I saw in the press. I've done my due diligence. I can find nothing else on it. It's been 10, 11 hours now. And the only story I've found so far is from Colin Newbold on Planet Rugby saying that, in fact, New Zealand has filed a complaint and quotes Ian Foster, the former head coach of the All Blacks, as saying, "We have submitted a file to World Rugby and we're hoping to get their comments on it." Yep. And he said, to get them the comment, and he said, hopefully they will. And then when asked about, did it include the red card to Sam Cane, he said, well, you can guess what you think is in there. So without disclosing what was in it. So that's what's going on here, folks. That's just crazy. It's why is it that every time the Springboks beat somebody, the people they beat have to whine about it? Now, these aren't the players. We don't see anything coming from any All Blacks players. We're just seeing this coming from the Rugby Union in New Zealand. Talk about some spoiled sports, some sad sacks, some people who are very unhappy about their lot in life. It's a shame. It's a shame. Again, if you want to take exception to the officiating, that's cool. I called out officiating throughout the World Cup. But again, that's what we see as fans. That's what we see on the TV. That's the angle we're shown. That doesn't mean we're right. Doesn't mean World Rugby's wrong. But World Rugby definitely has a problem, and they need to address it. And not the least of which is the behavior of some of these coaches and some of these unions. They love to come after the Springboks anytime they view anything remotely a transgression, particularly Ross Erasmus. But they just give the light glove touch, the elite touch to Johnny Sexton, Owen Farrell, Warren Gatlin, a whole list of folks who are their favorite lot. At least that's a perception from my end. So you may agree, you may disagree, and you feel free to leave a comment behind. By the way, while you're here, folks, hit that like button if you don't mind. Doesn't cost you anything but a moment of your time. Just hit that button. Do appreciate it. I am sitting outside in sub-zero temperatures right now. I was going to wear the 2023 rugby officials jersey out here, but I would be really cold. So I put on my hoodie here to get a little bit of warmth. Sitting outside. This is the first frost. Actually, the lawn is covered in a crusty, frozen layer right now as we approach wintertime here on the East Coast of the United States. Of course, the Northern Hemisphere is now descending into winter. So, yeah, anyway. But, again, disappointing, but not shocking, not surprising that this is what came about. Man. So Steve Hansen, who's no longer the coach, of course, of New Zealand, but the legendary Sir Steve Hansen, opens his mouth and complains about the TMO as well in a separate incident, saying that World Rugby needs to fix this. The TMO needs to be taken out, essentially. No, it doesn't. The TMO does not need to be taken out. The TMO is an essential part of the game. What needs to be done is its role needs to be clarified and how far back they can go on things. Oh, that's what it was. I'm sorry. Here's the other one. So that's what I want to say. The point we'll go. A little bit ago. Let's get back to it. So a lot of New Zealand commenters and a lot of English commenters, especially, on different media sites, responding to articles, have talked about how it's wrong that Wayne Barnes admitted to Artie Savia that he made a mistake. Now watch the video. He doesn't admit he made a mistake. He says, "I didn't see it that way." Okay, he says, "I'm sorry, I didn't see it that way." So, anyway, whether he did or didn't, but they're astounded that Pollard is allowed to kick a penalty, and that cost him the game. No, ladies and gentlemen, the All Blacks were handed and gifted 5 points on a try that wasn't a try, and it failed to convert the kick. Richie Mo'unga missed it. The All Blacks, in the dying moments of the game, had a penalty from 44 meters away. And Jordy Barrett missed it wide left. That's 5 points. They scored 11. That's 16. They win 16-12. If they make the conversion, they win 13-12. If they just make the penalty conversion, they win 14-12. They had their chances. They had the ball. They had the opportunity. The bottom line is they lost. And anyone that ignores the failures of the All Blacks on the pitch, or ignores how they were shut down on offense. They were completely shut down. They never really were a threat. Or never mind the fact that they were arrogant in the first half and into the second half, repeatedly kicking into the corner instead of taking the points on offer. Had they taken points on offer from 35 meters away and made those points, a different outcome. Then it's the Springboks that are on the back foot here and are desperately scrambling to get points at the end of the game instead of the All Blacks. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. You know what? They didn't get it done. That's the bottom line. And if the Springboks had done the same thing, I would have been saying the exact same things about the Springboks right now, and I would have been attacked by rabid South Africans saying, "You're no Springbok fan. You go back to football. You stupid American. You know nothing about rugby." That's exactly the comments I'd be getting now. But I once again would be saying the exact same thing about South Africa's performance had the boots been reversed, because I'm objective and honest about it. We can be a supporter of a fan of a club and be enthusiastic, and we can be biased in favor of our team, but it's also possibly objective. And I was objective throughout this World Cup, as I called the Ireland-South Africa game a turgid affair, a boring game. I got roasted for that one. And I was consistent in my complaints about the TMO being inconsistent throughout this World Cup, whether I was at a game or I was watching it on television and calling the game, and whether it was Chile, Uruguay, Argentina, Tonga. Wasn't just South Africa and my favorite teams that I made these comments about. Anyway, but the All Blacks, they bring disrepute to the game by allegedly filing a complaint with World Rugby over the final. Not over officiating of the World Cup, but over the final. They're complaining about what exactly do they hope to achieve by this, other than sullying the reputation of the four-time William Webb Ellis Trophy winning South Africa Springboks. What do they hope? They've already done the same thing in '95 with their, we had food poisoning. They poisoned us. That's why they beat us. No, Joel Stransky beat you with a drop goal. Grow up. '95 was a long time ago. Now, so what happens next year if we beat the All Blacks in the Rugby Championship? Will they complain about the TMO? Again, not the players. These aren't the players, and these aren't even the fans. This is the New Zealand Rugby Union doing this. For shame. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, when you sit outside in sub-zero temperatures for a period of time, you start to lose feeling in your extremities. My hands are fine. They're perfectly warm. But the toes are starting to get quite cold. Normally I'm out in this weather exercising, so I don't really feel it. The feet keep moving, the blood keeps flowing. But sitting here, it really isn't quite getting it done. Again, the reason I did this live stream is to report a news story coming across from Planet Rugby, a reputable rugby site with some really good analysis and some great writing. Planet Rugby, Colin Newbold ran a story in the last 12 hours that New Zealand's rugby union has filed a complaint with World Rugby about the officiating in the final against the Springboks. I looked for it elsewhere. The only other place I could find it was MSN, but it looks to be simply a copy and paste from the Planet Rugby report. No other media sources were reporting it this hour when I went live. Normally, I look for at least more than one source, but in this case, it's a reputable source, and I've also waited, I think, a fair amount of time for things to develop, and they haven't, because while it's early morning here in the East Coast of the United States, it is afternoon around the rest of the rugby world, or already tomorrow in some parts of the world. So it seems reasonable to report on this. Hopefully, it's accurate. Not that I want New Zealand making this complaint, but I want the story to have been correct and not for me not to have gotten bad information. So again, at this hour, that's what's happening. The New Zealand Rugby Union filing complaint. Ian Foster, quoted in Planet Rugby, as saying, "We sent a file to World Rugby to get them to make a few comments. Hopefully they will." When asked whether it included the Sam Cane red card, he said, "Well, you can guess." In a separate story, Steve Hansen apparently has complained about the use of TMO and how it's sullying the game and damaging it. Canada geese, about 40 of them flying overhead. Let's make nice sights in the air, but nasty creatures. They crap everywhere. Anyway, folks, what are your thoughts on this? Feel free to leave a comment on this one and hit that like button if you don't mind. Love to hear feedback from people. What do you think? Is New Zealand correct at filing a complaint? Or is this just sour grapes? And again, let's make the distinction. These are not All Blacks players. These are not All Blacks fans that are doing this. This is the New Zealand Rugby Union. To be fair, if someone's going to make a lodge complaint, that is who would do it. It would be the Rugby Union. We don't see a South African Rugby Union complaint coming forward about the try. Of course, they won, so it would be really silly of them to do a complaint. But the bottom line here is that I'd like to hear what you guys have got to say. For me, it's sour grapes. It's really, really sour grapes, and this is poor sportsmanship on the part of New Zealand's rugby union, if in fact this is a true story, folks. But again, just a single source reporting, so we'll have to see. And we'll see how this unfolds. If we get more information, if it's reported in wider sources, I'll discuss this topic again. We'll come back to it. It's disappointing. It's disappointing. The bottom line is World Rugby has a lot of work to do, and they need to do it quickly. The next World Cup is in Australia, and we don't need this nonsense continuing into the next World Cup. We need to be resolved before the next test season opens in the spring. Well, spring for the Northern Hemisphere, fall for the Southern Hemisphere. Before that test season opens up, we need to see this sorted out. I actually need to see it sorted out pretty quickly because we have other things going. Premier League, we've got the top 14, we've got URC action all taking place. And then Major League Rugby will start in late January, early February. So we've got competitions around the world, and we need World Rugby to clean up its act and get it sorted out sooner rather than later. Delaying this sort of thing, getting solutions to this is not a happy outcome, to say the least. World Rugby really does need to do this. But, you know, the folks at World Rugby are tone deaf. They do what they want, and they don't really listen to other people for the most part, and they have all the answers, and we don't. So I suppose the fact that they work for World Rugby and they run it, maybe they're right. Maybe we don't have the answers. Maybe we have nothing to say. It's not our place. Except that the reason that they have jobs, the reason that they fly around in ritzy business and first-class flights all around the world, the reason they get media attention is because of you and me, rugby fans who put our heart and our soul into supporting the sport and our favorite clubs and sides, national sides, and put our money where our mouth is. Paying for tickets, buying kit, going to games, paying for subscriptions to watch a sport that is fragmented and poorly covered by global sports media. We are the ones who make it possible for them to live their luxurious, lovely lives. And they owe us something. They owe us clarity, they owe us honesty, and they owe us transparency. And I don't think we've seen any of those three things from World Rugby. Now, you've probably figured out from this stream, I don't work for World Rugby. And the odds are I probably won't be anytime soon. I don't think they would want me working for them. I don't know why not, though. I'm objective and I'll be fair. They have done some really good things for the sport, but they've also done some things that really entrenched a system that's been around for well over a century, an old boys club. And I think that's what's going on. But anyway, please leave your comments behind in this video. I'd love to see them after we're done with the stream and see what people have to say. What your thoughts on this are? Do you agree with this? Do you think it's suspect? I don't think the story is suspect, but do you agree with the All Blacks, protesting this? Is it appropriate? Should they do it? I think that probably we'll see some people say, yes, of course they should. It's their prerogative. And I don't disagree with that. But the fact that this made the media, it's not on the World Rugby side. If you go to World Rugby, there's no messages, no news reports about the Rugby Union of New Zealand filing a complaint. Nothing. So how did this get in the press? How did Planet Rugby get the story? And how did they quote Ian Foster? I have no problem with this, especially if it's handled quietly. But it making the news and getting our attention just makes us raise more questions about what's going on. So, but again, every time the Springboks beat somebody, there's always sour grapes. It's either food poisoning or the illegal use of substitutions or their approaches, this, that, and the other. No one ever admits they just got beaten. I mean, England, Japan, Yokohama, 2019, you got thumped. I mean, you got thoroughly outplayed. Thoroughly outplayed. In this World Cup, France, you lost. You were beaten. England, you lost. You were beaten. You had the Springboks. You had their game plan. You had them sorted out for 65 minutes. But much like I always say with the All Blacks, you can't simply take your foot off the accelerator. And somehow the Springboks got it together with the bomb squad, came back when you took your foot off the accelerator, and they put theirs on there, and they beat you. And the All Blacks, you had your chances. No Springbok played a hand in Richie Mo'unga missing a conversion. No Springbok had a hand in Jordy Barrett missing a penalty conversion late in the game. No Springbok had a hand in the All Blacks having 61% possession and only getting a single try. And quite frankly, we know that wasn't a try. Anyway, folks, we could go on all day and talk about this, but I think the important thing is we got the news out there, and we'll see how it unfolds and if there's any truth to it. So I want to thank you all for being here. Be sure to hit the like button. It doesn't cost you anything but a moment of your time as we approach the half-hour mark on this live stream. I'll be live later today with my regular news broadcast, but this was important enough for me to sit out here in the sub-zero temperatures to bring this story to you, and thank you for your patronage really do appreciate it. Grateful, and thank you so much. We'll catch you shortly. And don't forget this weekend, Rugby Ascendant starting Friday with the Stormers. That game will be on Rugby Ascendant. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay for the whole game, so you're going to be tuning in for me if you tune in, and you'll catch the first half and maybe a bit of the second half. But unfortunately, as a judge of elections, I was hit with a big curveball, surprise, that they have new piece of equipment that they're just introducing, and the election is next week on Tuesday, and I have to go to mandatory training Friday evening. So I will be covering the Stormers partial game, and then covering the other South Africa sides over the weekend in United Rugby Championship action on Rugby Ascendant. If you're new to the channel, you've never been to Rugby Ascendant, go check it out. Simply put the symbol at Rugby Ascendant, as in rising, Rugby Ascendant on YouTube, and then you'll find the channel. Please become a subscriber over there. We have a small but growing subscriber base, and you'll see that I've done over 200 plus play-by-play and color commentary live games, Curry Cup, test matches, HSBC 7s, Six Nations, World Rugby World Cup, and also URC. So thanks a lot, everybody. Catch you later, and be safe out there. Be sure to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit that like button. And thank you so much as I go back inside and try to get some feeling back in my toes this hour. Cheers.